going to do it in the cloud. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Edward Angelini-Cooke with EAC Therapy. And with me, I have Soraia Francisco, a recent graduate from Widener University's Center for Human Sexuality, Master's in Education with a focus in Human Sexuality Studies. And I wanted to have a conversation with my lovely pickle person because with everything going on, the recent graduates do not have anything going on right now. And I wanted to give human sexuality and social work students an opportunity to talk about their experiences and be recognized for the awesomeness that they have done. So with that, hi, Soraia.
Hi, Edward. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, or at least tell everybody else a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Soraia, rhymes with papaya. That's how I share a lot of my name with folks. I am a recent grad. I actually work in full-time. My current paying the bills hustle is nonprofit work. And sexuality is a side hustle that will soon be my full-time hustle at some point in the next few years. I live on the East Coast. I am a cancer survivor. I'm a pup parent. I'm a huge nerd. I love storytelling, and I love comics. I love movies. I love shows. I love the power that a lot of storytelling holds, and also just like fandom. I think it's such a powerful place for like healing and resistance against the heteronormativity that is enforced on queer folks daily. Yeah, and I am just super excited to be here. I'm also a first-gen college student. I was the first in my family to graduate from undergrad, and now the first to graduate with a master's. Immigrated here from Portugal, so it's been a really cool thing to achieve.
Yeah. Awesome. So you said that you're a first-gen grad. Where did you go for your undergrad?
I was a Scarlet Knight. I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey.
Ooh, Fat Cat City.
Yeah.
Nice. I have great memories of going to New Brunswick and being very intoxicated, going up to the grease trucks and stuffing my face with those glorious sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
those French fries. Oof.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. So tell me a little bit about your journey, or your a brief background of your decision to go to grad school.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, and I think this is similar to a lot of different conversations I've had with folks in the program around just in general within my friends group and like spheres of influence, social circle. I was the person that was like really comfortable around sexuality topics, and whenever folks wanted to talk about it, I was like a go-to. But it really came to a head when I was working. I used to live in Seattle, and I worked at a nonprofit that I hold near and dear to my heart, where I was building relationships with students. I was a school outreach coordinator. I was really helping them to tackle and overcome various barriers to success. So basic needs, food, shelter, helping them with their academics, just all around. I was kind of like the student cheerleader. And lucky for me, I did not have to do any discipline. Like that wasn't, my job was just to support them. And I was working with high schoolers, and I noticed that a lot of them came to me through the relationships clearly that I built and the trust and love for them. But they came to me with a lot of sexuality concerns and around relationships, around, STIs, pregnancies, stuff like that, they didn't feel comfortable necessarily bringing to their families, bringing to other adults in the school. And I realized, yes, this is a passion of mine, and I think it's something that I can go to school for again. But also, like, this is a huge need, and I'm just not equipped to be having all of these conversations. Like, I can, as a human being, listen, but I really need to learn, like, stuff I learned in the program around what my own values are and how I can empathize and empower them without necessarily, again, enforcing my own values on them. And so I had reached out to someone that had done it was through our whole lives trainer
Uh-huh.
that came to one of the schools that I was partnering with, and they had done like a puberty workshop, and they had done a split with parents and their students, and it was a gendered split, right, within the binary of like girls with the moms and boys with the dads. But seeing those like those intergenerational conversations being fostered by that facilitator, and having, you know, kids be like, wait, you went through this too, like it was so powerful. I was like, wow, I'd love to learn more about them. So I had a coffee date with them. I got them coffee. I was like, please, I'd love to hear about how you got into the work. And then that's when they recommended Widener to me. And so that's when I was like, am I even, and I had the huge battle of, am I even like good enough for grad school? I was a first gen college student who had like was flying by the seat of their pants, had no like, oh, can I even curse on here? Like no idea what I could do. And I you know, I didn't have anyone to guide me through grad school. So it was a whole new process, but I thought, you know what, this is something I really want to do. And it's something that I can come back with my students with a big, like a stronger foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where that started.
Okay. Well, hey, I just want to kind of step in here and say that I don't want to censor anybody. So like
Okay.
whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be totally fine. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So fucking just say it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks. So I, you know, also just to disclose, I am also a Widener grad. And you know, the reason why I'm asking Soraia here is because we had our very first class together at Widener. So tell me a little bit about what was it like being accepted? What was it like coming here? Why don't you speak a little bit to like the program at Widener and how it's kind of unique?
Yeah, it is very unique because when I was searching, there's kind of potentially two schools I was looking at, and I honestly, it was between Widener and I think it was Curtis University in Australia, in Perth, Australia, because they had a really fascinating sexology program as well, and I think it kind of, I whittled it, is that even the word, whittled it down to just, I don't think I want to move on to a new adventure with grad school, but also move to a whole new continent. So coming into Widener, just being accepted, it's surreal. Like it really, for me to even be able to come to this program and to have this opportunity, and to, oh, my internet's also saying it's unstable, so if I'll try to pop back in. Honestly, just I don't think I could ever have imagined like the impact it would have on me, or I don't think I could possibly describe like what I was expecting, because it's like beyond. And I think the program is very unique, but what I think the most that I got out of program was really the relationships. Because like with any other graduate program, there are its challenges and there are its shortcomings, because it is an institution, right? And especially when it comes to anti-oppressive practices, I think all institutions can do much more. And I think a lot is asked of the students, and I learned a lot from the students themselves. But all in all, it has been such a unique, and like, I'm very grateful for my experience there. I don't know if that necessarily answered your question.
No, yeah, thank you. I think that like one of the things that I found really unique about the program that I had never encountered was the amount of people that I met from so many different places. You know, even in our first class, you know, we had people, Colorado, Washington, Arizona, you know, people were driving in and flying in from all over the place. It was very bizarre that people were willing to get on a plane to come and hang out for, you know, like, what is that? Like 14 hours, 14-hour weekend classes.
Yeah.
That
Those
shows a lot
weekends,
of dedication.
those weekends were intense, yes. And I was one of those that was flying out from Washington and then driving from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. But in our class, I ended up becoming like, dear friends with you all, but one of my closest friends as well lived the town over from me where I'd grown up. So even now when I moved back to New Jersey, we see each other and we're able to connect often because I'm like, wow, you were a town over for me this whole time.
Yeah.
Well, when I was younger, but just being able to see everyone and like the reach that this program has is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me what was your best memory from grad school?
That is a good question. I have a lot of, I think, cherished memories, and there's some that I just don't have access to anymore because of chemotherapy and kind of the like cognitive effects that that's had.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one that always comes to mind is honestly like that first class, the way it ended, where Dr. Brent sang to us and like tears were like I'm gonna start tearing up just thinking about it. But having that closing moment with the yarn, and like I wore that thing until it disintegrated. And honestly, for the first time, recognizing how powerful like teaching and facilitation could be. But also, I'm used to intensive experiences. I've done AmeriCorps twice, and I greatly enjoy and benefit from intensive cohort experiences. But I don't think I was prepared for just how much this experience has given me, but also just the connections. Like, y'all, hold on one sec. I gotta put Boof inside. My dog is like scratching at the door. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
He wants to come in on the interview too. Honestly, the first semester was one of the hardest just because of, and I can share that halfway through the semester, I was able to finish 592, right, with all of you. And then I think a week or two later, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and my surgery was like before my second class, like the end of my second class. And I told my surgeon and my oncologist, I was like, so can we wait? Because I'd like to finish class this semester. And they looked at me like I had gone bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, like I want to finish up this semester, like, and that, cancer decided for me, no, you're not going to do that. And so I had to leave. And I think I'm very grateful that I had 592 and all of you, because you were some of the first folks that I shared the news with. And I think knowing that, like, and especially afterwards, Dr. Brent sent me this like beautiful email that I have saved somewhere of just like, this field needs you. Like, you need to come back when you're ready. And I think having that experience really gave me a lot to like hold on to when I realized like I had to step away, but like I could come back, like I would come back.
And I'm so glad you did.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of my most cherished memories for sure. I know, and there's plenty, just that one sticks out in my mind a lot.
Definitely, same here. And to what Soraia was talking about, at the end of our class, and just for those who don't know, 592 refers to like the first class that we take, which is Foundations in Human Sexuality, and it's also just kind of like the introduction to the program, and it kind of talks about our values, our beliefs. It challenged a lot of our understandings, our concepts. It asked so much from us in such a short amount of time. And I myself am also very grateful that Dr. Brent was there to facilitate that for us, because I know that I would have had probably a very different experience had it been somebody else. So in very many ways, I'm very thankful for that experience. And then also at the end of the class, he did this wonderful facilitation where we gave us a ball of yarn and created this web that connected us, and then went around and cut around the circle, and we held on to that. And I didn't take that off until after graduation, literally. So, because it was very important that you were all with me throughout that entire process.
Mm.
And I've even used that tool in other groups that I facilitated. And it's so powerful and very, very, I will always cherish that. So let's bookend this. So what would you say is the most challenging experience that you had during grad school?
Oh, well, let's see. Besides COVID-19 occurring during the final semester and the kind of loop that's in, because I'm very grateful for my last professor that I had, who was extremely flexible and kind of modeled compassionate, like flexible teaching.
Cool.
But that was Dr. McGuire, so shout out there. I'm kind of torn. I think a challenging memory in terms of challenging, and I think in terms of growth, was when I took 594 history and ethics. I learned so much around anti-oppression and like my own privilege, and also really around white supremacy, right? And how I can continue to perpetuate it, and how I have to actively work against it. And it is a constant process. And there were some challenging moments for me in just like expanding what I thought I knew. But I think personally, a challenging moment in the program, besides again having to go on medical leave and deal with that, I think was around my own experience, is like what I want to call it. Yeah, and because of some of the conversations I've had with cohort mates and with just modeling from professors, I was able to come out to some family members that I just hadn't, because I didn't, I mean, honestly, I was kind of scared. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, and I don't know if I have the strength to do that. And I was able to do that. But then I think another challenging bit was when I really, in my 618 class, which is like sensitive issues, it's a week-long course. It's even more intensive because it's 5 straight days of long hours. It was the first time that I've ever actually like come out as anything other than cis, and like even being able to name that. And I'll always be very grateful for that. I'm getting to the challenging bit in a second, but I want to preface it by saying that like even having that space and having so many different folks model like such authenticity and just like unapologetic queerness has been transformative for me. And so I remember trying to like dip my toes in the conversation again with some family members, and even just around like gender and identity and how it works. And they were like, nope, there's only 2 genders. And like, I realized that's just not a conversation they're ready for, and not a conversation that sometimes I might not even have to have. And I think it was challenging recognizing that sometimes there's some areas that I just am not going to share with folks, and having to be okay with that. But I'd say, yeah, I think challenging my frameworks around recognizing systems of oppression that I hadn't recognized before this program.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I took 619, and that was, oof, that was a class.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
That was like 592 on steroids.
Very intense. Yeah, there were lots of tears, like triple the amount of tears, because there was more days.
Yep. Yeah, I can remember, and again, that those are experiences that I'm going to hold with me, because I think they taught me the deepest lessons that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, as far as the power that I hold as a therapist, the power that you hold as an educator, and what that means for you, and like how to yield that power. And if we're talking about like superheroes and things like that, with Spider-Man, what is that that phrase?
With great power comes great responsibility.
There you
from
go.
Uncle
Right?
Ben. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's very true, right? Like, you know, the power that we have is transformative, and we need to harness that.
Mm,
And I'm very thankful to Widener for teaching me that lesson. That, and sometimes I can use this power in an ego sense, and that isn't the way that I should use it.
yes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be in grad school?
Oh, that's a good one. I know that we were asked this during my last class actually, because I ended up taking, my ladder got skewed. So one of the first classes you're supposed to take, I ended up taking as my
Mhm.
last class. Um, they had asked about like what your legacy, like what do you want your legacy to be? And I had to kind of talk to my therapist about it, because I was like, I don't know, because it's really hard as a cancer survivor to even look into the future,
Yeah.
honestly. Like full transparency, like I had to take it day by day. I don't know what the future holds because I may not be around. Um, and I think for me, based off of what brings me joy, but also what I think I've been put on this earth to do in this universe, is to connect folks and to make folks feel seen. And I think that that'll be enough for me. I've had several students in recent years reach out to me going, I learned to like really love myself and also just be my best queer self from seeing you do it. And even then I wasn't doing it as well as I could have, because I was still also exploring and learning. And so I think at the end of the day, wherever, like, whenever it's my time to like no longer be around, as long as folks felt seen and felt loved by me, then that's good enough for me.
That's such a good answer. I
Thanks.
love that. Yeah. So let's kind of talk about what was there anything that you read in grad school that was very impactful for you? Like any books or any articles, or, you know, even any silly memes or something?
Yeah. I think in terms of books, one of the books that I've read that just I think generally has impacted how I view, especially reproductive justice
Mm-hmm.
now, was when I took a class with Dr. Diane Brown, who is another, awesome professor, and reproductive justice is her wheelhouse, was Dorothy Roberts' Killing the Black Body.
Okay.
Super dense read, but just seeing like all the history and all the movements and everything that has been done, and having that context, because like if I hadn't taken that one credit elective, I may never have learned all of these things. And like reproductive justice is such a like well visible field, like part of our field. And so really learning about, misogynoir and anti-blackness within reproductive justice, I think was very pivotal for me, because they also, this book introduced me to various reproductive justice collectives and movements that have been doing the work that is, for Black, Indigenous, people of color, for trans folks. Like it's inclusive of everything that is not, what we consider, typical white mainstream reproductive justice.
Nice.
That one, and then I think in our last class, we were able to kind of do something a little differently, where we shared resources with one another, and someone had shared like a trans anthology of various stories, and just I think one of the poems in there, I was just like, wow, like, is that what it feels like to be completely seen as
Mhm.
a gender non-conforming, like it's just really powerful stuff that I wish was required reading, that was elevated to the same extent that a lot of typical articles and like journals are, if that makes sense.
I hear that. I mean, so I think about, because I even asked about like memes or anything that was really helpful because, we do read a lot of articles. We do read a lot of like really elevated texts. But like what we see on a day-to-day basis are memes, right? And I think
Mhm.
that memes, I think that scholars, academics can really learn a lot from that by reducing, right? Everything that all the important stuff into like 3 lines of text.
Yeah. You can break it down, right? I mean, that's one of the first lessons we learn is you have to be able to break it down in order to explain it to other folks. And like coming in with our knowledge of sexuality can speak up here, but sometimes you have to be able to break it down to the most basic like foundations, and that can be difficult. I think one of my favorite memes that I've seen is the one from, I think it's from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they've got like the wall of like different like things that they're like pointing at, and it's like, I think it says like me to a cis person, it's like, oh, I'm non-binary or genderqueer, and then it's like me to another like trans person, and it's like this complicated trying to explain your gender because it makes sense, and I'm like, that's totally how it works, I think. Yeah, I love memes, and I think honestly one of my favorite, I will share that one of my favorite papers that I ever wrote wasn't about like academic text. It was about, I wrote a paper for Men and Masculinities on Terminator, aliens, and like feminine masculinity, and and it was one of my like favorite things that I'd ever written because I'm a huge nerd. And so I think honestly a lot of formative stuff for me as a queer person has been through fandom and like fan fiction and creations and memes through that. So
Yeah, and I think that's great because like so before the interview we were talking about like the importance of fandom and another callback. Dr. Brent, the teacher that kind of birthed us into this process, is a huge Harry Potter fan and has really transformed my understanding of how I can like, and also given me permission to use my geekdom knowledge with this. So I have like I use superhero analogies all the time in my work, especially with queer people. And like literally anybody, but with helping people on gender journeys and trauma journeys, right? um Finding out what their superpower is so like powerful, because so many times we feel that the power has been taken away from us. And so many times in superhero stories, like Joseph Campbell, I think, is a wonderful tool that we can use in our practice. But he talks about the hero journey, and there's that moment in the story when the hero rediscovers themselves, and after feeling like all hope is lost. So what is your superpower?
I think that's the hardest question of all. As like a huge nerd and lover of honestly a lot of superhero comic books, and fandom has been very essential to my queerness and its development. What is my superpower? I keep thinking of glue, and again connecting people, but I think in terms of what I can represent for folks is as I've come into my queerness, giving less fucks about what other people think, and just being true to myself and allowing that to inspire others. But I think it's glue. It's bringing folks together. I love to bring folks together to connect over shared passions, shared identities, shared struggles, shared resources, everything. I think, I think my legacy and power would be strengthening and like a feeling of community, but
Mm.
that I think has yet to be seen.
Well, I mean, again, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
We may not be at that point where our superpowers may reveal themselves to ourselves and even to others. But I also think it's really interesting how like other people see us before we see ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of continue with this. So say we were to make a movie, right? A superhero movie
Yeah.
about your grad school journey. Um, who would you want to play you?
That is also really tough, because in terms of queer representation, which I'm very big on talking about as well, I would clearly want a genderqueer, non-binary trans person playing me.
Okay.
And thinking of all the little known actors that I know, right? But at the same time, I honestly can share that while I don't know who would necessarily play me, the following actors have been really influential in like my queerness. So Melinda Hamilton, right?
Okay.
Sarah Connor, Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley, Raja Mitchell, who was in, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Pitch Black, the original with Vin Diesel.
Okay.
Raja Mitchell was one of the captains, I think. And then Brianna Griffith was also in Pitch Black, who played Jack. And also Sebastian Stan, who
Oh,
plays the Winter Soldier.
sure does.
Huge to my genderqueer development for sure. So I think I'd be happy with any of them playing me, honestly. I think maybe.
Okay. I'm also kind of wondering if, since it's really important for you to have, like queer representation, that person has yet to come about, right? Because I feel like you would want a new up-and-comer to play you.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking
Somebody who
about it.
hasn't been seen before.
Yeah, I think someone, I don't know. I think out of the one person that I recently discovered that they are non-binary is I don't know if I'm saying their name right. Live. They play the daughter in Santa Clarita Diet, like Drew Barrymore's daughter.
Oh, okay.
I think they play. I think the character's name is Abby. They're like really funny, like have dry humor. I think I'd potentially be okay with them playing me, but yeah, I think it'd be a new upcoming person potentially. Who knows?
Do you watch Sabrina?
I think I watched the first season, the new one. Yeah.
Do you know Theo?
Yes, I know Thea.
Okay, so Theo is a up and coming gender non-binary actor named Lachlan Watson, and they are from Raleigh, North Carolina, where I used to live, and they are familiar with a lot of the friends that I have there who are in the theater. So I think they would be a great. They would do great.
Okay, well then, guess what? If a movie is made of me, let's call Lachlan and be like, hey, we have a
Hey,
part
you
for
want
you.
to play Soraia?
I will gladly connect with them.
Nice. All right. So what about so in every kind of hero narrative we have some kind of villain or some kind of a challenge or obstacle. So what would that obstacle be?
Whew. Well, besides, my anxiety and depression and cancer, I don't know, honestly. It might be more of those like less person and more like life events that were big obstacles for me. But then again, we also know that, you know, Sebastian Stan can play a really good arch nemesis, I guess, in at least one of the movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think for me, I've had my fair share of like, I guess, antagonists and folks that have challenged me and devalued like my contributions and like what I think I can offer. But I don't think I have any big like villains in terms of people. I think it's definitely more of my own experiences and health, and yeah, not as exciting of an answer, but
No, I hear that. And I think that like for a lot of people, the kind of like the pushback are, you know, like institutional, right? They're not, a lot of times they're not really people, they're things, right?
yeah.
Like you were talking about like oppression, right? Like you know, hegemonic masculinity, you know, all of these things, homophobia, transphobia, you know, these are things that push against us, that get in our way very many times. So like if you could take a stab at it, and say that challenge was a person, right? Who would you want to play that challenge? Who would you want to go up against?
I'd say if I had to be a person, and I don't think this will ever potentially be resolved, and I think that's part of when I talk about some of the things that I've decided to let go of and to continue my journey and not necessarily invite people all the way in is probably my dad, because he's I like love him, but as my therapist said, you can love your family, not always like them. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think we just fundamentally see the world in very different ways. And I think that there's some aspects of myself that he just won't ever get to see, which makes me sad, you know, as
Mm-hmm.
a child. But I also think that even now with everything that I've come into my own, and I can see a lot of my friends and even my colleagues be like, wow, you have a lot to offer in this field and like the work that you do. But I'm not still seen as someone that knows what they're talking about, or my field's not seen as something that's important. And I have to kind of deal with that and just not learn to be okay, but just be like, all right, like you're never going to validate me, and I'm not going to try to seek it. I think that's where I've come to. I think if there's a penultimate like hero villain scene, it's where I go, you know what? I don't need your validation.
Yes.
And that's big. I learned that through a conversation with another colleague during 618, like when I came out to the group for the first time in terms of my gender identity. We had done have you seen the levels of loss activity?
I don't think so.
Well, it's fascinating because it's supposed to be, you know, everyone can connect over loss. We've all experienced loss in some aspect. And it was talking about like, if you had to share something with the 4 or 5 people in your life that you designate, how difficult would it be to share it with them, and your fear of like losing them. And I remember, yeah, right. And it was a very intense activity. I remember volunteering and just being like, for the first time going, you know, how would I tell someone, especially these 4 family members, that I'm not cisgender? Like, and when they don't even, you know, they grew up, and even Portuguese itself is a very gendered language, right? You grow up with a binary and one language. And for me, even discovering neo languages has been so exciting. So I'm like, I can shift Portuguese to be inclusive. It's so fascinating. But learning that and realizing, wow, that would be a big loss, because I've always sought validation and continue to be like, just like accept me for me, be proud of me, be proud of all the things that I'm doing, and realizing that I might not ever get that. So
Ooh,
yeah.
I can really relate to that. Yeah. And I think it speaks to what we were saying. Like, I just want to be seen.
Yeah.
So I want to give that to other people because I don't always get to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Um, so say you had an opportunity to speak to somebody about to start their grad school journey, right? What kind of advice or what kind of lessons do you think that you would offer them?
Hmm. First and foremost, be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. Um, I think there's a lot of pressure, at least I've also felt this, where like you have to just have it all figured out, right? Um, you have to have it all figured out. And I know we had talked about this before around, you know, if you're coming into this field or whatever field you're coming into as a grad student, going, I need to be an expert in all of this. I need to be able to do all of these things, and that's just not possible, right? Like, unless you are superhuman, that's really cool. Please introduce yourself to me. But really, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. You will find your groove and the things that you want to be doing in this world. It might take some time, but also, like, regardless, you're needed. If you're passionate and you want to make an impact and empower other folks and yourself, like, then you're needed in this field, especially human sexuality, because it's such a small field for something that affects all of our lives. So I think be kind to yourself. You don't have to have it all figured out, and you're needed, period.
I definitely like that. I think that I know that we probably talked about this on the first day of class, but like imposter syndrome is very real. It's definitely something that I struggled with throughout my journey, and I'm still struggling with, as a PhD student. And something that I offered my friend that I think is really important is Maya Angelou is quoted by saying that, like, she said that I've written like 5 books, and after each one of them, I think they're going to find out now that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I always think that that's really powerful to me, because if somebody who is as influential as Maya Angelou can have imposter syndrome, then Jesus, I can definitely have imposter syndrome, and I can get through this too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I love music, and I wanted to know, because I know that you had posted something on something that I had posted, but I wanted to know if there were any songs that really helped you during really difficult times these past few years.
Oh, definitely a lot. And again, I think certain ones I just no longer have access to
Yeah.
because of my memory, but I can definitely pinpoint a few. Honestly, anything by Enrique Iglesias, Gente de Zona, Ciencio were really influential for me, just in terms of like feeling joy and movement and like being stress free. I know when I've had multiple surgeries, cancer related, that left me like having rough recoveries, right? And I couldn't, like, even just getting up and walking around was incredibly difficult. And so having music, and like my Zumba hour was literally me just like holding my stomach and like swaying back and forth very slowly. But even that was just something of like, hey, like I can still enjoy music and connect in this way with like the life inside me. But Sia's Alive, I played that a lot after my chemotherapy was over. Like, it's very like on the nose, but I really loved it. Lately, This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. Like, I didn't realize that this even existed until a few months ago when I came across it, and I was like, wow, I love this movie. I can listen to the soundtrack every day of my life. But I really think embracing like my full queer, I like to say my full queerness, and being like really unapologetic about it, that song's been very helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of just like when you need a day to just like yell and like let it all out, for the Four Non Blondes, What's Up? I love that song. I loved Sense8 when it had come out. Like, the relationship anarchist and me and queer person in me was super happy. I mean, yes, it's got its it's it's problems with a lot of other media, but I loved that song. And then lately, I don't know how to pronounce the band, Bastille. I don't know how to.
I think Bastille.
Bastille's Joy and Bad Decisions have been like really getting me through quarantine. I've always enjoyed the energy that music has given me. But yeah, but in terms of like, yeah, it's a lot. I love music. I love listening to a variety of music, and I love getting song recs from other folks. So,
did you check out Guster?
No, what is this?
Okay, so
Guster, is it an artist?
They're a band.
Guster.
And I was turned on to them when I started working for TGI Fridays back in like 2003, 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an album called Keep It Together. And the song Keep It Together has been, that entire album has been kind of my soundtrack these past couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song on there called Come Downstairs and Say Hello. Are you a Wizard of Oz fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I have seen it though.
Okay. Well, it kind of it uses some Wizard of Oz imagery, and the lyrics that I really grab onto are be calm, be brave, it'll be okay. Yeah, so I highly recommend that album.
I will look that up. Now that I'm thinking about it, you said Guster, I've definitely heard one of their songs before, and it was probably in a fandom mix, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
When people make like playlists, but that was years ago, and it might have been related to, oh my god, I'm gonna totally be a nerd here. Probably Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if you ever saw the cartoon, but
I have not.
Definitely. I mean, it's I love that cartoon, but
I know that just got dropped on Netflix.
It did. I would definitely recommend it. It's a pretty fun show.
Yeah, I have some clients who've been recommending that to me, and then some colleagues, some people that I graduated with, were like, Edward, you really need to get on this.
Oh.
So, who would you say is your grad school journey hero?
Oh, I don't think I have a grad school journey hero. Maybe like a grad school journey Justice League or grad school journey Avengers, because I grew up with DC, but have come to love Marvel in some of its aspects. So honestly, I would say my pickle peeps and all the friends and queer folks that I have met through this program.
Nice. Okay, so let's take that a step further. So say we were, I'm going to include myself because I am part of those. Well, hey, since we talked about pickle peeps, can you speak to what we mean when we say pickle peeps?
Yes. So we, at one point in our 592, our intro class, we touched upon one of the circles of sexuality was, I think, was it sensuality?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about skin hunger, which I had never heard the term of, but we'd always we knew the concept in our minds because we just didn't have the vocabulary for it. And it's that feeling of like touch that we crave. And please correct me if I'm misremembering anything, but we were talking about how to compare like discrepancies between skin hunger, especially if like within, any type of relationship, whether it's family, friendship, platonic, romantic, sexual. And we were talking about how some of us are like single serving pickle packs, which was what I was before the program. I was just like, no one touch my hand, no one cuddle with me, get away from me. To some folks that are like pickle tubs, where like if you're thinking of all the water it would take to fill up a tub, that's like all of the kind of affection and touch that you crave. And then there's like pickle oceans where you're like, I could never get enough. And I have, through this program and through my own exploration and like evolvement, I've realized I am definitely a pickle tub. Like, let's cuddle puddle, let's do it. And so we learned that analogy and referred to ourselves as like pickles, and it became kind of like our thing. And, you know, sending cards with pickles on them, or whenever we saw a pickle product, we text the group and be like, y'all, pickles, I'm thinking of you. So yeah, that's where Pickle Peeps comes from.
Yeah, I will never forget that. And whenever I bring that up, because that is part of my story now, right? Like, so whenever I'm doing like a podcast and we talk about skin hunger, I say, you know, like I'm a pickle ocean, right? Like there's not enough touch. And I know that during this time, us pickle oceans, us pickle tubs are really struggling. And, you know, I kind of talked about the fact that like, the other way that we kind of talk about this is with our love languages, right? Like, you know, touch, right, is part of our is a love language. So, you know, we have to find, okay, so I can't really get this right now. How else can I get my needs met? So yeah, so that's been really important. Okay, so say all of your pickle peeps and all the other queer individuals that you met in this program. We were in our fortress of solitude, or wherever our cave of wonders is going to be. What would you want to say to that? What would you want to say to us if we were in front of you?
I'm gonna tear up. I'd first want to, for whoever would like it, what I would give to just be able to hug you all. And I think to have that closure and say like goodbye, like this has been one, I mean, not goodbye, because I'm so excited to work alongside all of you, but I think honestly, when it comes down to it, like thank you, thank you, thank you, and just like I love you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think I would kind of say something along the same, and then I would just cry.
Yeah.
And I would want Dr. Brent to come in and play that song.
Oh God.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, all right. So, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think is important for people to know about you that you want to get out there?
Honestly, just if I'm on Instagram as Mixed Papaya, mx.papaya, and if you are ever in need to feel seen or to feel validated in your queerness or in your journey, feel free to reach out. I know for me, the kind of work that I want to be doing is really around empowering and focusing on queer youth and queer adults, because even as an adult, you don't have to have everything figured out. I'm still learning. As a, how old am I now? Because time's not real. As a 32-year-old, and I also want to just like work with medical professionals around sexuality and gender identity, because I think even within the queer community, there is still a lot of stigma and around bisexuality, around transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary folks, asexual folks. So yeah, I think that's what I'd like to share out, is if that's something that speaks to you and you want to do that kind of work, come find me. Let's start something.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Come find me. Nice, cool. Well, hey, I really want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and catching up. And I wish you so much luck in your endeavors. And I hope that, you know, down the road we can collaborate and get something fun together.
Absolutely. Anything nerdy, let's do it. You know.
I love the idea.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to catch up with you, and just again, I really appreciate the chance to share about grad school and to have this moment to reflect with one of my pickle peeps.
Yay! All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to hit end record now.
Bye.